Welcome back to Learners Academy. I am Mona Bhatia and today's poem is Autumn. It was written by Kalidas and later on translated by a.w.ryder. The beauty or special feature of this translation is that the poet has maintained the personification and imagery in the poem. Now let's have a look at the explanation of the poem. In this poem, the poet describes the beauty of the season autumn by personifying it. He describes autumn as a beautiful maiden. In the first line, the autumn comes, a maiden fair, in slenderness and grace. In this line, he says the season autumn arrives like a slender, fair, and graceful maiden. He creates a portrait of a lady with the help of a characteristics of the autumn season. Now, in the line number 3, with nodding rice stems in her hair and lilies in her face, Autumn has returned in a graceful manner with rice stem in her hair. Now, just think of a Autumn as a beautiful girl who has got rice stems on her hair and lilies in her face. This line also creates an image of a beautiful girl with flowers to decorate her beauty. In flowers of grasses, she is clad. Clad means worn. So, as she moves along, so she has worn flowers and grasses. She's clad in a beautiful dress of all the things that is present in the nature. Birds greet her with their cooing glad, like bracelets twinkling song. As she moves along, birds also greet her gladly with their cooing, and the sounds are similar to that of a tinkling song of a bracelet. What is a bracelet? It's a small ornament which is worn on the ankle, all right, on or in the hands, wrist, all right, and it makes a tinkling sound. Now we go to the second stanza. After portraying the image of how the autumn season looks during the daytime, the poet is now describing the second stanza is describing the enchanting beauty of the night of autumn. A diadem adorns the night. Diadem adorns the night means autumn wears a diadem. Diadem means crown of countless stars at night. Of multitudinous stars means countless. All right, and her silken robe is white moonlight. That means her robes are like white moonlight. That means white moonlight forms her silken robe. She and set free from cloudy bars, which appears to be set free from the patches of clouds. And on her face, the radiant moon. Her face is like a radiant moon, and her face is very bright and very shining. Bewitching smiles are shown. Bewitching means captivating or dazzling, and she has an enchanting smile on her face. The last two lines, she seems a slender maid. Autumn seems to be a slim young girl, soon to become a grown woman. Who soon will be a woman grown means this implies to the changes that occurs in nature, and the weather changes from autumn to winter season. The vibrant and beautiful autumn changes into chilled, dull and serious atmosphere of winter. So this was all about this poem Autumn. Now we'll move on to the next exercise. Now, in order to have a better understanding of the poem, let's go through some questions. Why is autumn called a maiden fair? The autumn is called a maiden fair because she walks with grace and tenderness, which is an attribute of a lady. How does autumn dress up at night? The autumn season dresses up in a silken robe of white moonlight and wears a tiara of lots of stars at night. Now, there is a question where we have to justify the use of imagery in the poem. So, the season autumn is compared to the maiden throughout the poem, and she's depicted as a season, as a with all resplendent beauty. She's shown to adorn the natural beauty that the season brings with itself. She's dressed with flowers, she puts rice stems in her hair, while the starry night becomes her tiara. The use of all these imagery makes the poem more graphically appealing. You can visualize all these things in your mind when you read this poem. Alright, you can even visualize autumn season as a slender young female whose beauty knows no bound. She's very beautiful and she walks gracefully. Thus, there is a very clever use of imagery, and this use of imagery gives a very mystical and serene look to the season autumn. Now we come to the most important topic of the poem, that is figures of speech. This entire poem is a good example of personification. The beauty of the autumn season is personified as a beautiful maiden. Now in the very first line we can see there is a indirect comparison between the season autumn and maiden. Autumn is compared to a maiden. Alright, so the figure of speech here is metaphor. Now in these two lines, birds greet her with their cooing glad like bracelet. The use of the word makes a simile here because their cooing is compared to the tinkling of the bracelets. The cooing of the birds is compared to the tinkling of the bracelets. Alright, now we move on to the next figure of speech. Her silken robe is white moonlit. Alright, so the white moonlight is her robe, is her silken robe. So there is a implicit comparison, indirect comparison between her dress and moonlight. Now we come to the second last line of the poem. Here you can see there is a repetition of the letters S 3 times in this sentence. So the figure of speech here is alliteration. That's all about the figures of speech. We'll move on to the next topic. Critical appreciation of the poem. The title of the poem is Autumn. The author of the poem is Kalidas. His work was translated by Professor a.w.ryder, and the rhyme scheme of the poem is A B A B C D C D. Now the figures of speech. The poem is a good example of personification. The beauty of autumn season is personified as a beautiful maiden. The use of imagery makes the poem very appealing, and you can visualize the autumn season as a slender young female who is soon going to become a beautiful woman. That is, it is soon going to turn into a winter season. Simile is used in the line, birds greet her with their cooing glad like a bracelet's tingling song. So the word like is used to compare. The first line of the poem is a metaphor. The autumn comes, a maiden fair, and there is metaphor used in this line also. Her silken robe is white moonlit. Alright, that's all about the figures of speech. The central idea of the poem is to enhance the beauty of autumn season, to portray the beauty of autumn season. The arrival of this season fills the atmosphere with positivity and excitement, while at night it fills the ambience with a moonlit glow. The poet is, dazzled with the beauty of the season. That's why he's just trying to compare it with a beautiful slender woman. That's all about the central idea of the poem. Now the next is why I like or dislike the poem. I like this poem very much because of the personification and imagery used by the poet. The mere idea behind this poem is to glorify the season, autumn season. The visualization in my mind leaves a pleasant image of this season. That's all about this poem. Keep watching Learners Academy. We are soon going to upload many new poems for your benefit. Happy learning. Thank you very much.